Our friends on the left have been worshipping at the altar of moral relativism for so long now. They've been living in a world of militarized tolerance for so many decades where no limiting principles are ever allowed to exist that it has some pretty absurd side effects sometimes, like an inability or a refusal to perform the moral calculus and arrive at a qualitative value judgment, even when the need to form that value judgment is as self-evident as a thing can be. So if any of those people are watching tonight as a public service, I'm going to unveil Curmudgeon's 68th law of mental hygiene, and it goes like this. Ready? Do feel free to take notes. If there's two groups of people having a conflict, and they've both got grievances against the other one, and one group is decapitating infants, and the other is not, the side that isn't cutting off the baby heads, just go ahead and assume those are the good guys. I promise you will wind up being right 100% of the time. And for as much as any reasonable person with a functioning conscience should be able to look at that fact pattern and say, yeah, I'm not on the side of the guys cutting off the baby heads, well, what can I say? Woke leftism is a hell of a goddamn drug. Even some members of the U.S. House of Representatives seem to be straddling the fence on the issue of whether they are rooting for team baby murder or rooting for their opponent, team maybe let's not murder babies. I won't tell you their names because if you guessed, you would be right. You know who they are. It's the usual suspects. A lot of mealy-mouthed statements about how all sides need to show restraint and we need a de-escalation of hostilities and, all that other kind of crap. The bodies hadn't even finished hitting the deck before MSNBC declared that Israel, just like a hot drunk girl riding the subway alone in a skimpy dress late at night, well, she probably had that shit coming. A good girl who wants to get home doesn't dress like a damn hussy, Israel. But before I hit the music and then continue ranting, I want to call things what they are for a moment or two. What Hamas just did inside Israel, with the consent and the support of the Islamic Republic of Iran, was not an act of war. No attempt was made to take or to hold ground or to neutralize enemy combatants or to achieve any tactical objective. The point of the operation was to go at the softest targets, find the weakest, most helpless, most vulnerable victims, and inflict upon them the most evil, most horrid, most shocking depredations that the human mind can conceive. This operation had 4 objectives: murder, rape, torture, kidnapping. It is an act of terrorism in the most literal, most 100-proof sense of that term, where the killing and the maiming are done in the most terrible ways that can be imagined, so the people left behind and the people of the larger world more broadly are left feeling terrified. But if I had a chance to talk to one of those elected officials or those fancy TV commentators who make their living playing the moral relativism everything is equal game, who seek to frame Israel versus Hamas and Iran as some game of cricket where everybody's just sort of on the same moral footing, you know what I would ask that person? I would ask them this. I have little desire to understand what animates a man, be it politically, philosophically, religiously, or otherwise, when the end result of that animation is him lopping the heads off of babies in their cradles. Frankly, understanding a man like that is just about the last thing I would ever want to do. When a man shows me he's pure evil, and he shows me by doing the most evil things that can ever be envisaged, I do not want to better understand his political views. I want to see him executed for his crimes. I want to see all those like him similarly executed. You don't agree. May I ask why? From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where the youngsters have just raised up 2 prized hogs that they named Hamas and Hezbollah, and we are real proud of them. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America and all ships at sea. Welcome to the program. I'm your eponymous host and humble servant. And can we please stop comparing every event to 9/11 and Pearl Harbor? There actually are other events in world history, believe it or not. It's okay to gauge the importance of an event without comparing it to those 2 things all the time. It's even possible, believe it or not, to dislike a group of other people without comparing them to the Nazis in the 1930s, but I digress. So there's a phenomenon that you may have noticed these last few days since Murderpalooza 2023 kicked off over there in the Holy Land. And it's a phenomenon I like to call This is why we have to get rid of both parties, because statistically there's a not insignificant chance that you have got yourself a Republican congressman who's been drawing a line in the sand in recent weeks, saying not one penny more for that douche in the muscle shirt, to quote a song I know. But now that Israel got attacked, well, he wants to drop the 101st Airborne Division directly into downtown goddamn Jerusalem, goddammit. That's the condition. And it afflicts about 99% of all congressmen, if I'm not mistaken. It's called, no, I don't dislike all foreign military adventures, just the ones I can't use for fundraising. That's the syndrome. Send money today. Together we can find a cure, I guess. Meanwhile, President and semi-animated cadaver Joseph R. Biden Jr. awoke today to the news that somebody else named Biden has his dick on the internet now, and his first name is not Hunter. I guess we should all be thankful to Mr. and Mrs. Biden for not naming one of their sons Richard. Not sure what else to say at this point. Also, pro tip for all 70-year-old men. Actually, wait, no. Pro tip for all men, period. Nobody wants to see a picture of your penis. Like, literally no one. The next woman who thinks, this guy is pretty close to sealing the deal here, but I think I will need to see him flexing with an erection just to be sure. She will be the first one. And you're welcome. But back to President Joe Biden, whose penis we haven't seen on the internet. And let's hope that doesn't change, ever. He's been working tirelessly to fulfill his role as leader of the free world ever since America's closest ally fell under attack a few days ago. And by working tirelessly, I mean they had him do about 140 seconds of note card reading on Saturday. Then he hosted a backyard barbecue with a live rock band for the White House staff. Because that's a great look, isn't it? Like, you can't even move the thing inside just for the sake of appearances and propriety. You just have to shove it in people's faces every chance you get. Like, we're the elites and you're not. Your silly little lives will not get in the way of our parties, damn it. And now here we are, Tuesday night, or Wednesday morning by the time you're watching this. Unless you're a channel member, then you'd have special early access, but that's a different discussion. And the President of the United States, aside from less than 3 minutes of mumbling some words off some note cards, with one of our key allies plunged into a war that he did much to start, well, he can't be bothered speaking in public about any of it. On Monday, the first working day after the attacks, you know what time the White House called a lid for the day? 11:40 a.m. In other words, over here on the West Coast, I had just stepped outside from my morning break, and President Joe Biden was done working for the day. What's that, Jim Eagle? Oh, President Joe Biden wasn't available Monday and Tuesday because he was being deposed by the special counsel in the classified documents case? Blimey, this changes everything. That Corvette was in a locked garage, by the way. We Bidens, we take operational security very seriously. That's why when I want to conceal my identity, I use email aliases that are very obviously based on my actual name and the very tiny state where I really live. Because when you're a super sophisticated international criminal mastermind, you have to always be thinking 2 steps ahead of every other bastard. My son Hunter taught me that. Smartest guy I know. And look, folks, I know this is shaping up like a pretty goddamn depressing week, but you know what makes my chest swell with pride in being an American? When a war breaks out halfway around the world, and one side is shooting rockets that my tax dollars paid for, and the other side is shooting down those rockets with rockets that my tax dollars also paid for, well, I've got half a mind to start playing Battle Hymn of the Republic softly in the background right now. Such is my boundless, unshakable pride in witnessing the feedback loop of U.S. foreign policy playing out on my very own 1080p high-definition television set. You know, folks, it took a man of real moral courage to bug out of Afghanistan like President Joe Biden did, but did he dither? Did he prevaricate? Oh, no, not my president. My president is a man of action. When my president sees a challenge in his path, he turns and runs and tells everybody else to flee for their damn lives. And when Joe Biden decided it was time to bug out of Afghanistan, was he bothered by the fact that we were returning the place to Taliban control and making our whole 20-year expenditure of blood and treasure effectively meaningless? Oh, no! Not my president. In fact, Joe Biden wasn't content with a cowardly but orderly withdrawal. Joe Biden said, no, I think I can turn this thing from an embarrassment to a shit show to a shambles. It took a man of bold and singular vision to abandon Bagram Air Base and take our chances evacuating our personnel from an unsecured commercial airport in the middle of the capital. But Joe Biden is that bold and singular man, ladies and gentlemen. When he was asked whether he wanted to take any of the $85 billion worth of weapons and vehicles and equipment and materiel that we had there, he said, nope! When he was asked, sir, mightn't it be a good idea to hold the airbase for just a few more days so we don't have to take our chances with the airport? He said, nope! When he was asked, sir, do you think we should disable any of these weapons and vehicles lest they fall into the hands of Islamic terrorists? He said, nope. And then, after several days had passed, 13 young Americans had been killed at the airport, and the whole thing had descended into a shit show of historically unprecedented proportions. When he was asked, sir, do you think we should just GTFO at this point before we make things even worse? President Joe Biden said, nope. I think I would like to kill an innocent family of 10 with a drone strike on my way out. And then I will watch Murder, She Wrote while I eat my tapioca and play my solitaire. And isn't there something so very annoying when you're just one of us plebes out here and fly over a country and we're just talking amongst ourselves and the government does some stupid-ass thing and we predict the quite obvious result that the stupid-ass thing is going to have, and then the thing we all knew would happen winds up happening? Like when Joe Biden bugged out of Afghanistan and just abandoned Bagram Air Base and left all of our gear sitting there, and here we were, we unwashed, benighted bumpkins who don't have any fancy college degrees, and we're saying to ourselves, if we turn all that gear over to Islamic terrorists, then doesn't it seem likely that they might turn around and sell it to other Islamic terrorists? And then might those terrorists use that gear to attack us or someone we like? And then they call you a conspiracy theorist, then they wave their hand and look down their nose at you, and with a pitying tone they say, oh dear, clearly you have been taken in by Russian disinformation. And then a few months go by, and then a few more months, and Joe Biden stirs up a brand new proxy war with Russia and starts just shoveling your tax dollars right into that bottomless black hole of fiscal unaccountability. And if you say, wait, no, I don't like that, well, he says you're a dangerous extremist. Probably a handmaiden for Putin, too. Meanwhile, congressmen and senators from both parties, they immediately start flying over there to Kiev more often than they fly home to their districts in the hopes of having their photograph taken with midget muscle shirt Jesus, who can absolve us of our sins and our money by the laying on of hands. Joe Biden gives the Islamic Republic of Iran a cash gift of $6 billion. Tony Blinken says with a straight face this money is only going to be used for food and medicine and medical equipment and medical supplies and not any terrorist stuff, damn it. And Iran says, okay, idiots, let us know how that works out for you. Because we're going to finance a big damn attack on Israel in 5, 4, 3, 2... So everybody on the left decided they wanted to become a damn Cold Warrior and a big Russia hawk just because the military-industrial complex learned to speak woke and talk about pronouns and shit. Which, I guess you could make that work if you had a strong and decisive leader who was capable of marshaling world opinion to his cause, but Joe Biden? That's who you picked for your Cold Warrior? You're serious? The guy who ends major diplomatic speeches by announcing he's going to bed? That guy? So now we have the reports on the ground, because of course we do, that these Hamas guys are wielding U.S. weapons and using U.S. equipment, because that's what happens when you give a whole bunch of gear to one group of terrorists, then give another group of terrorists a sufficient reserve of cash to go buy it and transport it to where they need it. It adds up to a butcher's bill of strategic incompetence where babies get their heads cut off inside the territory of a U.S. ally. But seriously, if you take all U.S. money and equipment out of the equation, this fight they would be fighting it with revolvers and carbines on the backs of camels. Literally nothing is happening here that your tax dollars didn't pay for on some level. And that's the closest thing to a moral equivalence I'm going to draw between the opposing factions here, since, the whole thing with decapitating babies and all that. Me and my provincial arbitrary moral value judgments. When will I ever learn? And if you're somebody who voted for Joe Biden, worse yet, if you're someone who plans on voting for him twice, you really need to start putting it together that there is a causal relationship between the people you vote for and the things you get. Did you vote for Biden because you heard somebody on TV saying, oh, he's got so much foreign policy experience? If you did, you're a fool. Joe Biden has been wrong on quite literally every single foreign policy question of the last 50 years or more. He's even been wrong about things that nobody remembers anymore because everybody else is dead. The man has a long and very distinguished track record of being a damned fool who is wrong about everything. What I'm trying to say here, dear Biden voter, is this. The botched withdrawal from Afghanistan, you voted for that. Abandoning all the gear at Bagram, you voted for that. The wide-ass open border with at least 200 terrorist watch list suspects ingressing the country this year that we know of, you voted for that. Iran being sufficiently flushed with cash to finance a Hamas attack on Israel using American gear where old women get gang raped and babies get beheaded? Yup, you voted for that. You wanted to be cold warriors and you lined up behind the weakest, most incompetent, most corrupt public official of at least the last 100 years. Meanwhile, Trump delivered 3 years of peace and prosperity, and the world's tyrants and madmen were on their best behavior when he was running the store. And now guys like Joe Biden, guys who directly author more human misery by 9 a.m. than Trump ever has in his entire life, they tell us Trump has to be thrown in prison and taken off the ballot to save democracy. Thanks very much indeed for watching. Have a great day and a pleasant tomorrow. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.